In this video, we're going to be taking a look at exercise 12-3. And what I've already done is I've already gone ahead and drawn the parts. These are the detail views for each of the three non-standard components. We've got our cover plate, the gasket, and the base chamber. I also drew a simple representation of the bolt over here so that I could include that in my assembly view. Now, there's a lot of different types of assembly views. There's the isometric version of an assembly view, and then there's a sectioned assembly view, and then there's also non-sectioned assembly views. But in the case of this example this week, for exercise 12-3, we're going to be taking a look at the sectioned assembly view. Now, there's a couple of things that I've done already in this file to make my life a little bit easier. I'm not going to be focusing on how to dimension the drawings because we've covered that a lot this semester. What I'm really going to be focusing on is how to lay out my drawing views and lay out my sheets, because I want everything to fit nice and neat on here. So in this example, we're going to have one sheet that's going to have our assembly and our list of material, another sheet that is going to have our base chamber, a sheet that's going to have our gasket, and a sheet that is going to have the cover plate. So what I've done is I've gone ahead and drawn circles to represent the bolt hole circles on the centerline layer in the model space. That way, no matter which scale these happen to be at in my paper space, they'll still dimension fine. And to get these rotated center marks, all I did was, when I created the holes in the first pattern, I went ahead and drew a vertical line in this hole, and then when I did the polar array on this, it went ahead and just arrayed that vertical line into the angle that it needed to be for each of the respective holes. For this view, I just copied this over to here, removed the holes right here, and added the bigger hole. And then this view here is just really a combination of this view and this view, with the section views being a little bit different. The other thing that it's important to note is once you have these three things here, all you have to do is move these on top of each other and you have your assembly view once you put in the bolts. Well, in an assembly view, when you have two parts mating that are sectioned, you want to use an opposite hatch pattern for the two parts that are touching so that there's no confusion when you're looking at it. To get this opposite hatch pattern, you just put in the same hatch pattern, but then when you click on it and the hatch editor comes up, you have the option to change the angle, and I just changed this to a 90-degree angle so that it was opposite of the 45-degree angle that the ANSI 31 hatch pattern is. The other thing that I've done is I've just used a simple representation for the major diameter of the inside threads, and the bolt over here is only drawn for illustrative purposes in the assembly view. This is not a standard piece, so realistically, as long as this thing is called out as what it is supposed to be called out, it doesn't really matter whether or not it's drawn 100% accurately, because this is something that's going to be ordered anyway. Now, the other thing that I've done is I've created 4 sheet tabs down here. Each one is a blank sheet tab that has my border in it on the template. And the way that I did that was I just right-click on the first one, go to Move or Copy, click on Create a Copy, and move to End, and hit OK. And then I can just go to these and hit Rename, and if I had a sheet 5, I would just put in sheet 5 just like that. But since I don't have a sheet 5, I can just right-click on that and hit Delete and say OK to that dialog box. So Layout 2 was the tab that I wasn't using, and I just deleted that one off of my screen. So now for this particular view, what I want to do is I want my first sheet to be my assembly with my list of material. So to put this in here, again, I'm going to go to MV for Make Viewport, and I'm going to make a viewport up here, double click inside the viewport, and kind of zoom in on what I want to be in that viewport. And it looks like I can get a scale of 1:1 pretty easily with this. So now I'm going to double click back outside the viewport and then just adjust the viewport so that I can see everything clearly. At this point, I'm going to verify that it's still a scale of 1:1 and hit the lock button, and then change my viewport to the viewports layer. I'm now going to switch over to my text layer and create my table for my list of materials. So once I'm on the text layer, I'm just going to click on my Annotate tab and click on Table. I want 4 columns because I'm going to do ID number, quantity, name, and material. And there's 4 parts, and I like to have a couple of extra rows at the end, so I'm going to go with 6 rows. And I'm just going to go ahead and say OK, and then drop my table in right here. For the header, I'm just going to put list of material. And then I'm going to use tab, and I'm just going to go through and just kind of fill out the whole thing now. So this is going to be my ID. This is going to be the quantity. This is going to be the material or the name. This is going to be the material. So item number 1, I'm going to make my base chamber, which there's 1 of. And the material for that is going to be steel. Item number 2, there's 1. I'm going to make this my cover plate. That is also steel. Item number 3 is a quantity of 1. And I'm going to make that my gasket, which is neoprene. Item number 4, there's a quantity of 8. And this is going to be my M8 by 1.25 by 30 long hex head bolt. And these are also steel. So now once I have all that in, why this one decided to go with a top center justification instead of a right justification, I'm not sure, but we're going to go ahead and just make everything in the quantity column a top center justification, just for consistency's sake. So now once I have this, obviously this doesn't fit on the sheet that I have right now, but now I can come in here and I can shrink down this ID row pretty good. I can shrink down the quantity row pretty far. I'm actually going to shrink this down and it'll automatically wrap the text. And then I should be able to shrink this down just far enough to get everything on one sheet. So now I can just move this down here a little bit. And now I've got my list of material complete with the ID, the quantity, the name, and the material. And now all I have to do is label those parts over here. So we'll go back to the Home tab and I'll switch to my dimension layer. And then I'll go ahead and use the leader command. And I use LE enter for the leader command that I use. This is part 1. I want to make sure that I'm grabbing this. This is part 3. Part 2. And part 4. So here we have our assembly view and our list of material with all of the information that's necessary for those 2 views. So at this point I'm ready to move on to my next sheet. And on sheet 2, the part that I want to put on here is going to be the base chamber. So I'm going to go MV enter. And I'm going to go ahead and draw my viewport. And I'm going to want to draw this one real big because this is where I'm going to be doing some dimensioning. I know I'm still on the dimension layer, but I can change that in a minute. Now, it doesn't look like I can get a 1-to-1 scale on this sheet, but I'm going to stretch this up here and I'm going to try to see if I can't get that. Okay, so it's not going to fit in here at a 1-to-1 scale, but because I have a lot of dimensions and stuff, I really want to go ahead and use a 1-to-1 scale. So what I'm going to do, since I haven't put any labels or any annotations or anything on this yet, I can still modify this in the model without messing anything else up. This is the one that I've put leaders on, so this is the one that I absolutely do not want to touch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this thing 90 degrees in the model space. The top view doesn't change, but instead of a top and front view, it's now just a top and a right side view. So when I go back to sheet 2, let me double click inside of here, and it looks like I'll be able to actually get this to be in here at a scale of 1 to 1 using a top and right view. So I'm going to verify that that's still at a scale of 1 to 1. I'm going to lock my viewport and put my viewport on the viewport layer. And now I'm ready to begin dimensioning. I can put all the dimensions that I need to on here. One thing that I do want to call out, in the book, it looks like these holes are centered between this hole and this hole. But if you do this based on the dimensions in the book, the inside diameter for this is 60, the outside diameter for this is 100. So for these to be centered, they would actually have to be on a bolt hole circle of 80. But the bolt hole circle that the book uses is 75. So based on the dimensions, these are not centered. I know they look centered in the book, but we want to go based off of the dimensions, not necessarily what it looks like. So with that being said, this is ready for dimensioning. We can call out the M24 for the center. We can call out the 8 holes here, the outer diameter, the inner diameter, and then we can put in the depths and everything that we have for our things here. The one thing that I do want to talk about is these holes right here. So this is the one thing that I'm actually going to go ahead and put in the whole symbol for this, because this one can be kind of confusing because it has a depth symbol. Now, there's 2 ways we can do this, and I'm going to show you guys both of those ways. I can go to the LE command and bring a leader off of here, and I can type in M8 by 1.25 17 deep eight holes. And I can do it this way. But doing it this way, not every company has different standards, and using the word deep on here isn't really something that you're going to find a lot of companies doing. So the depth symbol is something that we want to learn to incorporate, and there's a way that you can do it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this because it's an mtext thing, so I can do anything that I want to do within mtext. So before the 17, right here is where I want to put my deep symbol. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to my symbols, and we can see here's all of the normal symbols that we have for the system. I want to click on Other, and when I click on Other, that's going to open up the character map for Microsoft Windows. This is a Windows function. This is not an AutoCAD function. So what I want to do now is I want to come down here to the font for GD&T. And it should be on everybody's computer because GD&T gets installed with AutoCAD. So once I go to the GD&T thing, right here is my symbol for depth. So I can double click on that, and it's going to come down here into this. And I want to click on Copy. And then I can come right over here and click on Paste. And what that's going to do is that's going to put in that symbol, so now I can remove the word deep from that and close my text editor. So now I've got the deep symbol, so I don't actually have to go through and put in anything else. And the best way to actually call this out would be to put in the X by 17 and then have the deep symbol after the 17 and then 8 holes, or I could put, you know, typical or something like that. But that's really the only annotation on that front sheet that's, or on the base chamber, that's going to give anybody any problems, is going to be that depth symbol. So that's how we go through and put in the depth. The rest of the dimensions I'll leave up to you guys. I'm going to go to my sheet 3, MV enter to make my viewport. We'll draw my viewport in here. I'm going to double click inside, zoom in on that view, change the scale to 1 to 1. Double click outside and then click back on this. shrink this up so that that's the only view that's visible. Verify that it's still a 1-to-1, lock it, and put the viewport on the viewport layer. Go to my sheet 4, MV enter, draw my viewport, double click inside, zoom in on the gasket, change the scale to 1-to-1, double click back outside, adjust the size of the viewport, lock it, and put it on the viewport layer. So there we've got the 4 sheets for the drawing. We've got our sheet 1, which is our assembly view, our parts list, and our item IDs. Sheet 2 is going to be the base chamber, sheet 3 is the cover plate, and sheet 4 is the gasket. Once you're done with all the dimensioning on each of these parts, then what you have is a true working drawing where you've got your assembly view and all of your detail views, and then you are ready to submit this one.